All right. According to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network,
Because he would know.
49ers quarterback Brock Purdy.
Okay.
He is heading to Jacksonville. Let's hope his flight wasn't delayed. To work with a private quarterback coach, a sports performance expert, and it's showing that he is making progress on his recovery.
Faster than what was originally anticipated.
Yeah, and the feeling is this is a good sign in hopes that he would be ready for the start of the regular season. Brock Purdy.
Y'all remember that time and period in life where there were these two Olympians. One was an American sweetheart, the other not so much. And both were medalist hopefuls. And then one felt as though there would be too much competition. And then all of a sudden, there comes this dude out of nowhere with a tire iron and then just takes it to Kerrigan's leg.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding.
Yeah.
I mean, Trey Lance, if you're listening, you got to figure something out here, man. You can't let him get on that field before you get on that field.
By the way, Tanya Harding,
yeah,
misunderstood.
Well, we just had a segment where we talked about tattoos on adult film stars. I mean, Tanya Harding took her talents to the adult film industry as well.
I mean, who doesn't? At this point.
Well, I don't think everybody, I would say, would have preferred to have heard that about Nancy Kerrigan, but that never happened.
No, it didn't.
No.
Well,
but she did get banged out on that. That godly.
Yeah.
Pause.
I hear what you're saying.
That guy did hit her knee, and she was not able to compete. She was sitting there like, why? Why? You remember that? Why?
If you sit and if you just think and say that story out loud to somebody now, just say, yeah, there was these two Olympic hopefuls, and one of them hired somebody to take a tire iron to another competitor's kneecap.
Some people really believe and subscribe to win at all means and any means necessary.
Yeah. How bad you want it?
How bad do you want it, Trey Lance?
How you want it?
Can't win.
Closed casket?
Closed casket, homie.
How you want it, dog? Yeah. So no,
you better wear your bulletproof vest all day long.
So, moral of the story is you think Trey Lance should hire somebody to take out Brock Purdy's knees. Is that what you're saying?
You didn't hear me say that.
Okay.
Because I do not want to be held liable for if it were to really happen. But tell me another way that Brock Purdy doesn't start if he makes it back healthy.
Look, I think the 49ers quarterback situation is the most fascinating storyline heading into the season. I think from so many layers of you've got Trey Lance, who they drafted away traded away a ton to draft him. I mean, that draft capital, the 3 first-round picks, whatever it was, like to move all the way up there to take Trey Lance. And he might never really get an opportunity because of the last pick of the draft.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's got the lead. He's in the driver's seat because everything the Niners have said, everything John Lynch and everything that Kyle Shanahan have said has all been about Brock Purdy's our guy when he comes back. Purdy, right. If he's healthy, he's our guy. And Trey Lance is sitting there with all that draft capital that they used to acquire him and take him. And he really, in defense of Trey Lance, never really got an opportunity. Because the one game he got to start a couple of games. Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt, but that was early. Everyone knew.
Didn't he get hurt? He got hurt.
So he got a little banged up. But then last year, he was the starter, and the only game he got a full run in was that monsoon game in Chicago to open the season. Nobody looked good in that game. It was like unforeseen weather. They've never seen anything like it before.
What game did he get the season-ending injury?
That was the next week.
Okay, right.
So it's literally he had one game in a monsoon, and then week 2 he got hurt, and that's
crazy.
It. So it's like everyone's talking about, wow, you mean Brock Purdy's clearly the guy. You have the Niners have no idea what Trey Lance is. They don't know. He's never really gotten a chance.
Here's the problem: Brock Purdy has played himself into those sentiments. That isn't hypothetical. That isn't contingent upon anything. He earned that right to be considered the starter for this team, for this franchise. He carried them back into the playoff race. And as everyone would say it, I mean, and it seemed like it was a whole lot of passion and intensity, not looking at it from the reality of he got his ass knocked out of the game, but they looked at it from the standpoint of if they had Brock Purdy in that game, it would have been a different game for San Fran.
Yeah.
They wasn't saying if Trey Lance was in the game, it would have been a different game. They were saying if we would have had our man Brock Purdy in that game, if he doesn't get knocked out of that game, it's a totally different game. I think that the players believe it's Brock Purdy. We know the GM thinks it's Brock Purdy. Now, the question is, what does Kyle Shanahan think? Because if I can recall correctly, I've never heard him come out and just flat out say Brock Purdy is our guy.
Well, they've alluded to it. Like they've said, yeah, he's, if he's healthy and he's ready to go, Brock has earned the right to be our starting quarterback.
I would just say this. I think Kyle Shanahan is probably planning on having to go with Trey Lance. I wonder if this is a conversation because Trey Lance hasn't looked good in OTAs. I mean, they did have OTAs or mini camps by now,
and he's still recovering from his injury. I mean, he's farther along than Brock Purdy is, but he's
so
also
we
been
haven't seen him in practice either.
They have, and they've said that he's looked better. He's shown improvement, but it hasn't been this glowing support like we've seen for Brock Purdy.
If you're hearing reports that say he looks better and he looks improved, what are you basing that off of? What is that looks better and he's improved? What does that look like?
George Kittle came out recently and said, some of the stuff that he struggled with before, he's not struggling with as much now. But like you hear this is just to sum it up, because people have commented on this within the 49ers, obviously John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. The feeling you get is Trey Lance, definitely shown some improvement, and we're happy for his improvement and for his success.
It just sounds like you want to say but at the end of everything you say about Trey Lance.
It's true, though. That's all the reporting out of this.
Say it again. What did it get? Say it, and I'm going to finish your sentence. Go ahead.
Everything about Trey Lance is, so far, he's shown improvement over where he was last year.
But he's not Brock Purdy. Go ahead. Give me another one.
That's the overall sentiment.
Yeah, because you could chop it up and present it however you want to present it. But it just sounds like at the end of it,
it's Brock Purdy.
There needs to be, but he's not Brock Purdy.
Exactly. And that's why this whole thing is
talk about. Now that first off, if you ever go as high as a Trey Lance goes, I find it hard to say that you were a bust. You just didn't live up to maybe what the hype or the expectation of somebody at your draft position. But you can always say, Jamarcus Russell can always say, this is the number I went in the draft. Yep. He can always say it. And for that, you had to do something that was everything but bust. You had to be far from bust to be able to get that draft grade, knowing how hard it is to get drafted to begin with. So, but talk about bust potential. That's a bust of a pick.
And you would assume in every other situation in the NFL, you would assume if they committed that much to trade up and draft him, that he would have, tie goes to whoever's got the most capital behind him, and that would be Trey Lance. And the Niners are saying everything but. So maybe they've seen something in practice that would indicate to them, as much as he's improved, he's still not anything that we saw from Brock Purdy. And maybe all of that is coming out in one way or another through some of this messaging publicly. But the idea that what Trey Lance is after one game as a starter in a monsoon is crazy to me. Like the whole thing is wild.
I don't know that they know what they have. I mean, again, I always say this. This is my saying. The beautiful thing about sports is that you always, if you're in these situations, you always have the opportunity to prove people wrong. But it sounds as though Brock Purdy not trying to have him, and good for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, that's great. Listen,
for Brock. If Brock Purdy can get himself back healthy and ready to go again, he realizes that this is an opportunity that he needs not let Trey Lance ruin for him. Because let Trey Lance get in there and ball out. You know what? Brock Purdy becomes Mr. Irrelevant again. Great, I would assume great trade value. I would assume the trade value is there. Or he's just a dope-ass backup like he started off to be.
Yeah, it's just the whole situation, just to see Trey Lance's career, and he comes in and he plays a couple of games, his rookie year because Jimmy Garoppolo gets a little banged up, and then finally you hand the keys over. This is going to be his real shot, and the guy plays in a monsoon and then gets hurt in week 2, Jonas, and that's it.
Jonas,
it's over.
By the way, another thing you have to deal with in sports is the idea of you have all this pressure on your neck because everybody thinks that somebody else is better than you.
Yeah, it's
as the top pick for this team, you're sitting there looking at it like, man, they just got rid of Garoppolo. That gives me an opportunity to play. But this guy, they really like this other guy.
Yeah,
and you got to deal with that pressure. You got to look at your teammates. Your teammates is in the locker room like, man, but when Brock Purdy gets back, and there's that guy in the locker room. Believe that, Jonas. You better have some thick skin because there is that guy in the locker room that's going to be like, Brock, hey, bro, Brock. So whenever he's moving around, he's got to see that the team, the Army, looks at this general, not this one. They look at this one as he's the guy that's the leader. That becomes a difficult environment to have success in. So if Trey Lance has success, you believe me, it will have been thoroughly earned. He would have pushed through a lot of adversity to have success as the starter of this team.